What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the show, to the Build in El Salvador show. My name is Michael Ruiz,
I'm Jordan Herbs.
and we're two entrepreneurs who are out here in El Salvador. We made the move from the United States, and we're currently building out several projects over here. And today, we got an excellent show for you. For anyone that's thinking about visiting El Salvador, for anyone that's thinking about moving to El Salvador, I think you're definitely going to want to tune in. But before we get into all of that, I think we should give an update on Sovereignty Studios. We took a week off, and just to bring our audience up to speed with everything that has transpired, all the progress we made, I think it's a good idea to do a little rundown. What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, we've been busy. And for those of you that watched the show a couple weeks ago, you'll notice that things look a little different today. Mainly the lighting, but also we've got it decorated. So we had an interior decorator come in. We've got this nice earthy color tone feel in here. We've got some lights, and you can't see it, but with these cables are organized to the extreme underneath the table. That feels the best.
It does feel like we're becoming a little bit more official over here at Sovereignty Studios. We started off with a plastic table that we got at Walmart.
Picnic table.
Yep. And now we have upgraded. We have an actual podcast table with cabling running underneath, and we got lights and we got cameras, and we're good to go here.
Yeah, and so a lot about we'll get into this in a different episode, but getting equipment here at El Salvador can be tricky, finding the right things, realizing what you forgot, and then figuring out how to get it here, avoiding as many taxes as possible, which can be impossible sometimes. But yeah, it's definitely a process, and suffice to say, I think we're pretty proud of what we got going here.
Yeah. Well, we can talk a little bit about that since we can talk about why we actually took a week off. So, one thing, I had to return back to the United States to pick up my dog and bring her over here to El Salvador. So, I was out of the country. That's one reason we took a week off. But during that time, we also had this studio, like Jordan said, designed and decorated. We had someone do the paneling, put up the curtains, paint the walls. So we hired an interior decorator to do all of this. So she was busy last week in the studio. That's another reason we weren't doing the show. Um, but yeah, and like Jordan said, I was in the United States. We ordered a bunch of stuff from Amazon and B&H Photo, and I packed that up in my suitcases and brought it with me over here to El Salvador, so we would have the finishing touches on the studio, which is the lighting and a few other things, a few other items. So that's where we are at right now, or that's what happened last week, and that's why we didn't shoot the show. But happy to be back now.
Definitely. And on that note about hiring someone, I just want to say, like, I think we're both kind of DIY guys at heart. We like doing things, but there's something about being in a new place, not knowing where to buy certain things, not to mention how much they cost or what's good quality. And so hiring someone that's local from the place that knows exactly where to go to find all the different bits of the curtains, the paints, and the blinds, and all these things just save that alone was worth the cost. I think to pay for labor.
Yeah, this is the first time I've hired somebody to, decorate and design uh anything. And I tell you what, it was really assuring to know that there's someone, working while I'm doing other things that need to get done.
Yeah.
And because I didn't want to spend my time shopping around, going to different stores, different locations, picking out material, looking for curtains. To have someone do that for you was well worth the money.
Yeah, and even then, just like I made a video a couple weeks ago about hanging the blinds, and you got to go through the drywall into concrete. I've never done that. Like I've gone through drywall into wood, like studs in the wall, but like you have to have a certain kind of whatever it's called, a tip to put in, and then if it's concrete behind it, it's got to be a different kind. Anyway, they already know how to do all that, so I feel like it was good to learn. They told me how to do it. But I'm glad I didn't have to do it because we all know how many mistakes we have to make before we perfect a new hobby or craft.
For
So,
sure. Yeah, there's a learning curve, like everything in life, right?
yeah, so we got to kind of, as Hormozy would say, like they brought their battle scars, so we didn't have to get them.
Yeah. So now that we're up and running and we got the show going and we got all the equipment, set up pretty much, uh, I think you can expect the daily show. Uh, we're starting today a little later just because we had to do a few last minute touches. But from here on out, you can expect a show at 12 p.m.
Central America time.
Yes, and I think that's like 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right now. Might change with daylight savings time.
Yeah, that's why it's easier to just say El Salvador time.
That's
Figure
right.
it out, people.
Yeah,
12 o'clock noon El Salvador time. We'll be here
and
Monday to Thursday.
yeah. And another thing we've been doing last week, while this was in operations or this was in construction, is we've been active in our school community. We've been engaging with our audience there. So, if you haven't joined that community yet, but want to stay up to date with everything we're doing, that's where you can go and talk to Jordan and me and Matthias directly. That's where we do most of our engagement with our audience is on the school platform. It's free. Just go to our website, sovereigntystudios.com, and click community, or just go to school platform and type in Sovereignty Studios.
Yeah, I think, I mean, as entrepreneurs, we believe in building in public. We're all into that. And so I just want to say it's super cool to know that all these people are interested in building in El Salvador and they like what we're doing. And it feels really good because it feels good to know we're providing value or at least trying to. And we know people want it. And maybe we're still pinpointing exactly like the best way to provide that value. But it feels really good from that perspective after like trying for years to figure out how to provide value for people online. Like we found something.
Yes, yes. And it's really cool to engage with them and hear their stories and hear their hopes and dreams and aspirations, right? And what their ideas of coming to El Salvador is all about. And just hearing that is also invigorating, right? It makes you feel like you're really a part of something.
Yeah, and then also just like I'm reminded reading some people's stories in there about like where I was. I mean, when did we first come here? 7 months ago, right? So
Yep.
just before that, what my mindset was about El Salvador and moving there, bringing the family there, like what do I do? And even like 2 years ago, when it was even further away, right? When it was an extra 5 hour hop of a flight away and everything involved. And now it's like, cool, we're here. And now we want to share that. It's like, okay, there's so many other people that are like, okay, is this for me? Do I want to come to El Salvador? Uh, but you need to get more information before you can make a proper decision. You need to come check it out. You need to have a dog on your elbow asking for a trip to El
Attention.
Salvador.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do I bring my dog to El Salvador?
Yep. So it also reminds me of a lot of the trial and error that I had to go through. Lily, if you're not quiet, you're gonna have to leave. Sit. Yeah. It reminds me a lot of the trial and error that we had to go through. Just seeing where a lot of people are at, what they're thinking, a lot of questions, a lot of uncertainties, a lot of what ifs, and that could segue right into kind of the topic for today, which
Yeah,
is
gaining clarity in on El Salvador.
yeah.
It's a really big mission. So many, like you mentioned, so many people have this inclination. They're considering, they're dreaming of moving to El Salvador because, as Max Kaiser calls it, the new land of the free and home of the brave. Right. So everyone's hearing all this. There's a great marketing campaign for El Salvador. Let's not let's not tiptoe around it. So the question is it real? Is it truthful? And is it for you?
Yep.
Because it's not for everyone. Just because there's a really cool big picture thing going on here, it doesn't mean it's for everyone. It's still Central America. It's still hot when you're, especially when you're down at the beach, and there's still a lot of things that, maybe if you're from Europe or North America, maybe there's certain aspects of living here that aren't for you.
Mhm.
There's definitely things we're overcoming every day.
Yeah. But these are questions that revolve in people's minds. And, if they're thinking about coming here, right? It's like you want those questions resolved. You want to get that clarity. That way, whether it is for you or whether it isn't for you, that question is answered.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where I think what we're doing once again as entrepreneurs trying to build in public is something that like supporting people to get that clarity, to get those answers, get those questions answered, because there are some various organizations and groups doing things in terms of Bitcoin, obviously, in terms of getting residency. things like this. But in terms of just like, I mean, even if you look at like a realtor, right? It's their job to find you a place to buy or to rent or whatever. But what about everything else? What about the dogs? What about the kids and schools? And what about like, well, I don't know what neighborhood I want to live in. Just because the realtor showed me this cool listing, that doesn't mean I'm going to enjoy it there.
Hmm.
Right. So there's so many questions to get answered. I'm an entrepreneur. I want to start a business, but what kind of business do I start? Or
What's
how
the
do I start
process?
it?
Yeah.
What's the process? And so the networking that comes in, the imagine all the people we've met this far and just what we've learned from them and their experience. And then just the side conversations we have at Bitcoin meetups or whatever with people sharing some aspect of their experience in El Salvador, which contributes to the perspective they've built and how we've benefited from just hearing them talk.
Well, it circles back to like the beginning of this conversation where we're talking about like, learning from other people's battle scars, right? It's
Yeah.
like, imagine you can avoid a lot of those battle scars and just, take the fast lane on the learning track over here and get all the questions that you got answered in a short amount of time, right? And we've been thinking a lot about this. We've been thinking, how do we do that? Because it's not only about helping other people, but it's also we want to build our tribe too, right? We want to attract people here who are builders, who are forward thinkers, who are optimistic, who want to build a better, brighter future. Maybe even outside of the fiat paradigm. So we've been just having discussions, on the side here and there about what we can do to facilitate all of this. And I don't know, Jordan, you want to go into that a little
Well,
bit?
yeah, well, just on that note, it's kind of like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs things, right? It's like once you got your basic needs met on levels, it's like, okay, well, how can I find personal fulfillment and satisfaction and like doing something good for humanity or contributing some massive value essentially to people?
Hmm.
And I think that's kind of where I think a lot of Bitcoiners in El Salvador are there. And I think we're just kind of fall into that pool of like, okay, well, what can we do that will be just like super awesome, right? And we're looking at it like El Salvador is really cool. It's a great place to build right now. There's a great regulatory platform to build upon. So, how can we encourage and support others to do that? So, here, this is where our excitement comes in, our enthusiasm, and as entrepreneurs coming up with things like this Kickstart retreat offer, where it's like, this goes beyond just like, okay, how can we make a buck, right? No,
Hmm.
it's like, cool. How can we provide like really cool value, like fill a need,
Hmm.
you know?
Well, since you just mentioned it, we might as well just go right into that. So, all of this is culminating to this idea that we have to create a retreat, a kickstart retreat, kickstart your life in El Salvador, all to gain clarity, right? And whether you want to move here or whether you're just curious about moving here or whether you're just trying to get some answers or whether you're just trying to find out what all the hype is about, right? We want to get you all of that answered in a short amount of time in a 3 or 5 day retreat over here in El Salvador. And not only that, so you have a great, fantastic time as well, but then you also get connected to the network that is going to be able to help you the rest of the way.
Yeah, and like, I'm gonna mention Bitcoin again because a lot of Bitcoiners listen to the show, but like remember the having party or any conference adopting Bitcoin. You go to these conferences and you're surrounded by people that kind of think on the same wavelength in a certain point. And depending on the focus of the conference,
Mm.
you might make some really good connections, like professional connections, personal connections, whatever it might be. But where's the mastermind summit about building in El Salvador? Right? Like, hey, how can I come down and build my life there?
Mhm.
And so I think this is why we get so pumped up and why we want to talk about it because this is going to be a really cool event. And hopefully we'll do many more. But it's like people come, you have fun, you connect, you meet with the right people, you get the perspective, you learn, and you gain clarity on all these questions that you can't get answered from afar. You
Yeah.
just have to be here for certain questions to be answered. And so, what better way to come into an environment that's dedicated just to that? I'm not aware of that happening besides what we're trying to do here.
Yeah. Yeah. So, can you define again a little bit more the Kickstart retreat offer?
Yeah, well, as we're looking at it, right? It's like a weekend, an extended weekend,
Mhm.
3, 4, 5 days. Like, come when you can. Like, this is when the doors open, this is when the doors close. Obviously, people got jobs, they got schedules, routines, families. And maybe not everyone can make it for an extended 5-day weekend, but imagine you can leave Friday night and you can leave Sunday night, and you don't even have to take a day off of work, right? But packed into that weekend are networking opportunities, workshops. We're going to make a workbook you keep with you, take notes, figure out how to get your business started, become legal so you can start a business, start your residency, talk to lawyers, talk to entrepreneurs, talk to people educating in Bitcoin, talking to people adopting Bitcoin,
Talk
talking
to people homeschooling their kids, or talk to parents who have their kids in schools, right? That might be a major concern for people as well.
talk to people who brought their dogs over,
That's
figuring
right.
out
What's
that
the
process.
process of doing something like that? So yeah, we it sounds like the angle we're taking here is just, you know, bring your questions, bring your excitement, bring your enthusiasm, and we're going to provide you the platform for all your questions to get answered and for you to connect with all the right people.
Yeah, it's kind of like where this all started from, where we were like, okay, like a build in El Salvador incubator, right? Like, what do we have a value that we can offer people? Well, that's like, you came here like what, 6 or 7 times before finally moving, right? But over the span of 6 months, we came back and forth on separate trips, and we networked and we learned and we gathered all this information. So imagine being able to essentially get all that information in just a weekend instead of like 6 or 7 trips and tens of thousands of dollars and all this time and energy spent. And like, there was a lot of frustration, I think, sometimes too, in trying to figure things out. I mean, it took multiple trips just to find the right neighborhood to move into and to look at all the different houses, because like, we're not from Central America. Even when you come once or twice to visit and you go to the beaches, this and that, when you start to look at it like, I'm gonna live here, it's a completely different situation. Like, the beach isn't necessarily a great place to live once you realize how hot it is. Do I wanna live in this heat
Well,
every
that's your
day?
personal preference.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I think the point you're driving home is like you get to figure out based on your personal preference what's right for you here.
Exactly, and I bring up the beach because, like, I lived on a beach in Hawaii. I love the beach. I'm a beach guy, but I'm also an entrepreneur. I wanna, like, work at home, and I wanna have a comfortable environment, and for the situation for the time being, wasn't available to me to make it work out in that way. So I'm like, "Wow, well, I love the beach, but I'm actually gonna not live by the beach?" And that's just an informed decision I finally had to come to terms with because of the reality.
But you had to experience it first, right?
Exactly.
Yes. And so that's a lot of what this retreat is. It's experience El Salvador in a way that gives you all the clarity you need to make decisions.
Yeah, compress the time, the energy, and even the money required to learn all this stuff, compress it into a weekend.
And that's the big part, right? I can't tell you how much money I've spent uh through trial and error, right? And that's what we're trying to save people on this with this retreat as well. All that trial and error, um, all the time and the money and the energy that you waste trying to figure out what's right for you. Hey, you know what? We're trying to eliminate that with this retreat, right? Or at least mitigate the cost as much as possible.
And yeah, and to tie a bow on this, or to like close the loop, it's like what's really cool, I think, for us is one of our bigger visions is to build in real life tribe and community, a
Mhm.
citadel, right? And to do things in real life. So it's really cool to be able to translate our content efforts, our brand messaging into something in the real world, connecting with real people in real time
Yep.
to build something that is probably one of the most substantial things you can build on this planet, community.
I tell you what, this is we're working a lot over here. And we're busy, but it doesn't feel like it because number one, it feels like we're working towards something. Number two, what we're working towards is very aligned with our values and who we are as people, right? And it definitely feels like my creative energy and the capacity I have for all of that is being utilized in a way that's very fulfilling. And then three, it's the people that we're working around, the people that we're attracting over here, like being around them, like it's awesome, man. Living on the same street as you, having young Matt over here. We got more people actually on their way over here.
Oh, yeah, we got a new guy moving in, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, um, the tribe that we're attracting, I can't, and I'm gonna bring this back to COVID, right? And what it was like living around communists, and it just sucks, you know? And so living around people who have a similar worldview, who are also driven by the same ideals and the same morals and the same values. That's what I'm really excited about building. You know, this is why I'm excited about this podcast, because and the media company that we're building, because now we can get our message out there and start to connect with people that resonate with it. And then this is why I'm really excited about this retreat also, because now we have an avenue to actually connect with people. And in addition to everything that you were talking about, Jordan, and that we've been talking about in the discussion, it's going to be tons of fun too, right? Like you said, when you're around a community of like-minded people on the beach, you know, in a intimate setting, right? Doing all these activities together, it builds camaraderie, it builds friendship, right? And then not only that, but we're going to also design this retreat to have a lot of fun involved. And so it's going to be a good time too, on top of, you know, getting all the information that you need to make decisions, and on top of actually also doing things that you need to get done. One of the things that we want to do with this retreat is we want to already get you started here with certain legal paperwork, right? One of those is the NEAT, right? It's the tax ID that you need in El Salvador to do pretty much anything. And so, you know, we can already arrange for you to get that here on that retreat. So it's like we're also pushing progress while you're here as well.
Right. And then we're building relationships with lawyers, so you can even like potentially, if nothing else, have the relationship with a lawyer to start the residency process later.
Yeah, and have the Rolodex of
The
people.
Rolodex,
Yeah,
yeah.
the Rolodex of people you need to talk to who have been personally vetted by Jordan and I and the Sovereignty Studios team.
Yeah, and hopefully vetted in a good way.
Yes.
And then another thing we were talking about, which I actually had to do myself, that is the convincing of the spouse and family. Like, hey, is this a, I want to do this, but like, what, if you come down alone, it's going to be maybe a harder sell to your spouse. But imagine being able to bring your family on the vacation to come check this out, show everyone a good time, then everyone's excited to move to
Yeah,
El
dude.
Salvador.
I get so exactly. And that's part of the, you know, having fun aspect of this whole retreat as well, right? It's like I can't tell you how many messages I get and how many comments I get on my stuff and be like, "Man, El Salvador looks great. Man, I wish I could move, but you know, the wife doesn't want to or the husband doesn't want to." And so, sorry guys, they're doing construction
They're
outside.
building in El Salvador out there.
Yeah. So imagine, you know, their first experience being an absolutely invigorating, uh, energizing time with all types of great people around them. You know, that first impressions are everything. And so that might, you know, that might set the tone for, you know, whatever persuasion that needs to happen in order for you to get your wife or your spouse on board as well as your family too.
Yeah, and I don't know if I mean, I know there's a lot of couples out there that kind of see the world the same way, but I know in my case, like my wife just doesn't care about politics, about the world, about money. She just doesn't care. And I've tried to make her care, right? Like Bitcoin, blah, blah, blah. And she's just like, just give me a peaceful life and everything's good. And I'm like, okay, well, if we want to look long term here, our kids have a good future, like we need to change jurisdictions, right?
Hmm.
But that's not really enough, right? She needs to know, okay, cool. We got a nice house to live in. It's a nice neighborhood. There's opportunity here for you, Jordan. Like, okay, cool. I'm in. Right. But if you got a spouse to convince that doesn't really care about the world in the same way, you got to kind of put it on in their terms
Hmm.
so they can understand it. And there's plenty of avenues for that down here. I mean, who doesn't love the beach,
Yeah, that's right.
for example?
And then not only, like I said, I think the conversations and it's the magic that you feel here is the people, right? And so I
Right.
think that with the people that we know over here, we're also going to bring a lot of them into the retreat as well. So we're gonna have people who've already made the journey here, who've already started businesses here, right? Who have lived here a few years and can already answer a lot of your questions, or you know, if you have any concerns, who can talk you through them a little bit as well. And so that's another thing that we want to do is integrate the locals as well as the expats that have already moved here into the retreat, so you already can tap into that network that's here and hear people's stories.
There's a really cool, oh, I don't have the word for it. I don't want to say dichotomy, but like the expats, Bitcoiner types coming down here are all super optimistic to build, to do things. We're all like motivated and driven. But then you have the equally contagious energy of the Salvadorians who are like, I mean, we were driving to Zante yesterday and you see all these different groups of families, friends, whatever, of Salvadorians just walking along the street, laughing, having a great time along the highway. And just like everywhere you go, people are just celebrating. And yes, because they were unable to do that for decades, but like there's just something really cool about being even where we went to eat behind us, there was a Salvadorian family that I think lives in the States, and they were like totally speaking in Spanglish the whole time, English to Spanish, English to Spanish. And then they were calling friends and showing the sunset, like, this is my country, this is
Mhm.
El Salvador. And like everyone's just so stoked to be around. And it's not to be discounted, but, like, between all the like I'm saying, these different demographics of people, if you will, like, there's just a lot of special magic happening here that feels really good to be around beyond anything else,
And that's
beyond starting a business, beyond Bitcoin, any of that. It's just like, I wanna be around people that are happy.
man, Salvadoran people are happy for sure. And that's the magic that I want to bring into this retreat too, right? Like um I wrote a post on it just I think last week talking about how, the magic that we felt pretty much stemmed from the people, from the people that we're meeting, the conversations that we're having and so forth. And so that's another thing that I really want to recreate in this retreat is like or allow the platform for that magic to transpire.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. And just going through the rest of our notes here, I mean, yeah, that's it. And beyond the culture, there's, Central America. It's Central America. It's very tropical. It's
Mhm.
very hot. There's rain. There's just different things that like you don't think about until you go there, like traveling. Like you don't think of things until you just are there and you're like, "Oh, wow, I like should bring an umbrella with me if
Yeah,
I'm leaving
yeah,
in the late afternoon," right?
yeah.
Or the quality of your umbrella. I remember when I first went to Central America like 15 years ago to Costa Rica, and I just bought a dollar umbrella outside the store or whatever. And like then I went traveling and I was up in the mountains where it was raining every day, and the other gringo expats were like looking at my umbrella and they're like, "You got ripped off. Look at this." And they're like analyzing the umbrella. I'm like, "Yo, it's an umbrella." But it's like an umbrella is a big deal when you live in gotta
Yeah,
get a good one.
yeah. Yeah, there's certain things that you learn from being here. Like I just wrote something about the daylight, the consistency of daylight over here, which is to me a big deal. I didn't realize it was a big deal until I started living here and
Mm,
started feeling it. I wake up now 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m., right? Feeling fresh and ready to go. And that's because the daylight also like the sunsets are also around the same time, around 6:30, right? So you get to build this sleep routine around a natural circadian rhythm, and there isn't this daylight savings time over here to interrupt that circadian rhythm. So that was a big deal that I didn't realize was missing from my life until I got here. So you start to learn these little things here and there, but and of course you can't get all of this information in a 3 to 5 day retreat, but it there's some things that you're just gonna have to experience from being here, and going through the motions, but, you will get, like, the majority of it, right? You'll get the big pieces solved for you. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, I think our intention with this like is clarity.
Yeah.
Is like come for clarity because I know before I came, I had no idea. I just hear Bukele on Twitter. I hear about El Salvador, Bitcoin, blah blah blah. But does that mean it's for me? I have no idea. And then we came, and I decided, yes, I want to investigate this more. I'm going to invest to investigate in this more.
Mhm.
And it's not just anymore because of Bitcoin and Bukele and this stuff. It's actually because no, I felt a connection with the place, with the people. I see the opportunity, like, okay, cool. And not saying that's going to happen for everyone, but I do think that's the first step.
Yes.
Gain clarity because, yeah, marketing, Max Kaiser's all over the place, like, and marketing is marketing. We got to take it with a grain of salt. You don't know something, you don't know about a product until you buy it.
Mm.
They may have great commercials, but it might be a piece of shit. But when you buy it, then you'll know.
Yeah. So, what's the deal with, the retreat then? What do you think? What are we thinking here? 6 weeks from now?
End of August, early September,
Mhm.
we're going to lock in the venue this week
Mhm.
and we're gathering the list. I mean, we got an extensive network here. think most of these people are going to be stoked to just come be a part of it anyway.
Hmm.
But we're gathering that list of speakers, which are just other people that are coming to talk and share their experience. We're building these workshops. We've
Hmm.
got several workshops, like the crash course, the Building El Salvador crash course, this workbook that's going to be included. That's going to be super valuable.
Yep.
And we're watching that manifest. Matt has taken the first steps on that. And Matt, maybe Matt should chime in because Matt came here super blindly. Matt kind of did come based on the marketing. Do you have an opinion on that whole thing?
Yeah, as a person with not a huge amount of savings, I decided to save on the ticket and come here like one time. And it's definitely crazy how much you learn by just being here. And I don't know where I would have been if it weren't with you guys. Like, you know, you've been here months and you know the ins and outs of living here. So yeah,
You also
that
had like
helped
what
a
a
lot.
18-hour flight, something insane.
Something insane. Yeah, 17 hours in total.
Yeah, right. So not everyone has that opportunity. Even just to come for a weekend, not everyone has that opportunity.
Yeah, well, but Matt did set himself up, right, to link up with us beforehand. He didn't come completely blind. He knew that
That's true.
he was coming into,
He joined the community,
yeah,
people.
he
School.
exactly.
Yeah. Check out school.
Yeah,
And let's talk about that real quick. And not we don't want to. It's not about us, but it's just about networking in general.
yeah.
You got to put yourself out there. You move into a new place, like reach out, start seeing what's there, start seeing who's there, start
Mhm,
seeing where your skills, your natural talents could be appreciated.
mhm.
Start creating opportunities for yourself before you're there. Just see what's possible. I mean, look what with Matt, it worked out great.
Yep.
I traveled the world for 12 years that way. Hey, I want to go to that country. I'd post about it somewhere and people would link me to someone. I went there and made videos with them. Like, great. I have a free place to live. But that's just like
Well, and
huge.
then again, this retreat does that for you, though, right? It's like it takes all that work out of it, at least at the beginning phase of it, right? It's like imagine you start your journey there with a retreat that gets you connected to everyone, right? You don't have to put yourself out there. Like you don't have to, I guess, form your network individually one by one by connecting on Twitter or connecting through the internet or different, platforms. You can just come to a retreat, experience El Salvador, tap into a network, join a community, get all the information you need, right? All within a weekend. And it's like then from there, you've already built a little foundation now. You know people, you've already made a connection, and it's a lot easier then to reach out to people and for whatever it is that you need.
Yeah, building a network is really important in
Yeah.
general. And I mean, we're only here because both of us were working on our personal brands. That's how we met online, right? And
Mhm.
so you have a bigger brand on a bigger network on Twitter than I do, for example. But like, if you don't have that network already and you haven't been building that, or it's just slow going, which it can be, this is like time warp, right? This is a slipstream. You come, you'll network with all the people you need to know. They know who you are,
Mhm.
and you can come like planting seeds. Like, hey, I do this, and I'd like to do this. Like, hey, do you know anyone to talk to? Blah blah blah. And maybe you take a trip to go to a certain place to meet a certain party that needs you, that wants to have you there to collaborate with them. Who knows? But
Yeah.
you got to have that mindset.
So, okay, so for anyone listening to this and they want to come and join the Kickstart retreat, where should they go?
We'll go to school.com,
Yeah.
SKOOL,
Yeah.
uh, search for Sovereignty Studios, build in El Salvador,
Mhm.
or DM Sov Studios on X, but
Or
the
DM me
or
or
DM
you.
Michael. Just figure out how to get in touch with us, and we'll lead you in the right direction. Um, yeah, I mean,
How many
we
people are we thinking right now for the first one?
10, right?
Around 10 to 15?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, just so the audience is aware, part of what this podcast is about too is we're literally brainstorming and shooting ideas as we go. This is building in public. This is we're doing it.
Yeah, it's a fine line to dance in and out of like marketing our thing, but also like sharing, like, well, brainstorming
Yeah.
and sharing like how we're going about this. Like, we preface this whole conversation with what our goals are, why we're here, why this kind of thing is important to us for our bigger picture. Right. So hopefully it doesn't sound like we're just trying to sell you something, but like we're having this conversation because by the end of it, hopefully the value proposition is clear. I mean, it is to me, and it gets me more and more excited. Like, this would have been great. I would have come to this before. I would have come to this,
Mm.
and it would have been perfect. The timing, everything about it would have been perfect.
Yeah, and on the along the lines of selling you something, right? What I don't anticipate making much money, if any money, on this. I think the network that we build, the experiences that we have, it's gonna that's primarily where a lot of the reward is gonna come in. And the reason I say that is because this upcoming retreat, like we said, 5 6 weeks from now, is priced like ridiculously affordable for people wanting to make that trek. So we don't have a price right now, but it's not something that's out of range for most people.
Yeah, I would say if you are seriously considering a move to El Salvador, it's a very good price.
Yeah.
Like what we've been discussing, like it's very, very, very reasonable. Even if you just look at a pretty nice Airbnb, what that would cost you for 4 or 5 days, like plus everything. I mean, what people don't know though, and you would learn, I guess, but we're gonna have like a private chef, so maybe you wouldn't learn. But like, food isn't so cheap here. I mean, me and Lau were talking about it because she's from Argentina. We've spent a lot of time in Argentina, and food in Argentina is cheap, good quality food because they produce it all there, right? There's no tariffs on imports and whatever. Here, I feel like everything is close to. I mean, a lot of things are close to the price they'd be in California,
Mm-hmm.
especially going out to a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want like quality beef or quality chicken or whatever it is, like the prices are not necessarily cheap like you would think in Central America.
Yeah, you know what I'm starting to realize now, at least for this first retreat, it's kind of like just pulling our money in order to make this affordable for everyone. That's kind of what this is feeling like, you know?
Yeah, like we're organizing it. I remember seeing a guy on Twitter a while back saying like, "Hey, shouldn't a mastermind be something where everyone's just pooling the money together to like bring to make a mastermind, right?
Yeah.
Instead of like some influencer like hosting it and making a bunch of money,
Mhm.
isn't the idea of a mastermind where like all the brightest minds are coming together for a shared goal, right?
Mhm.
Instead of there being organizers and people like profiting all this
Mhm.
from all this.
Yeah.
But in spirit, maybe that's a little of what we're doing. We'll
Yeah.
see how it evolves.
For sure. For sure. Like, yeah. I mean, this is this one 5 to 6 weeks from now. You don't even have a date yet. We're gonna get a venue. But this, I think, is gonna set the tone and give us a lot more clarity on exactly, how much demand there is for something like this. And I hope there's a lot of demand, because I would love to continue these and start building our tribe that way.
Dude, doing something like this, like once a month or once every 6 weeks, would be so much fun.
Yeah.
Like that would be the coolest thing ever. Meet cool people that want to come theoretically move to El Salvador, and then if later down the line they actually do move down, and
Yeah.
like you know them and you're friends with them. Like I don't know, there's something so exciting about that.
Yeah. Pretty cool. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's a good place to at least leave this topic off. You got any
Yeah.
last thoughts on it, Matt? You got any last thoughts on it? No.
No, I think
Stay tuned.
yeah, it's gonna be a fun week. We got some good shows planned for you. We're gonna talk about the bottom up renaissance.
Yep.
Talk about Bitcoin social layer. We're going to talk about some cool stuff. The amorphous blob clown show
That's
going
happening.
on.
Yeah.
Doing some mindset training on not letting politics distract us from the real goals.
Absolutely. And then also talk a little bit about the studio here, right? Some people might want to know, how we got this equipment in, what equipment we're using, some of the mistakes we made. We'll do a show on that too.
Yep. So stay tuned. We'll be back tomorrow at 12.